Hello? Just before Christmas Eve in 2000, a 16-year-old girl and her friend went to a shopping center in the city to buy Christmas presents. After they finished shopping, they said goodbye and went their separate ways. But no one expected that the 16-year-old girl would never return. This is one of the largest and most resource-intensive searches in British criminal history. The location of the case is Leeds, the geographical center of the United Kingdom. It is the third largest city in the UK and has the second largest economy in the UK after London. Leeds is a prosperous and desirable city to live in. The main character of the story is named Leanne Tiernan. She was born in September 1984. Her father is Michael Tiernan and her mother is Sharon Hawkhead. They divorced when she was young. Leanne was an optimistic and strong girl. With her excellent grades, she successfully enrolled at West Leeds High School. She was not only cheerful but also very confident, making her popular at school. However, a tragedy suddenly befell her before Christmas. So what happened to her that day? Next, let's turn back the clock to November 26, 2000. November 26, 2000 was a Sunday. Leanne didn't have school that day. With only 1 month until Christmas, she decided to meet her best friend, Sarah Whitehouse, to go Christmas shopping at the shopping center in Leeds City Centre. That day, they strolled freely through various shopping centers in Leeds. They had a fun time together. After finishing, they caught a bus and headed home. Both of them lived in Bramley, northwest of Leeds. In no time, the bus arrived at Bramley Station, and the two girls got off together. 4:50 p.m. They got off the bus and walked to Huffley Lane, where they said goodbye and headed towards their respective homes. Leanne followed a dark path into a small wooded area. She just needed to go through that small wooded area to reach her house. Sarah's house wasn't far from there. After arriving home, Sarah called Leanne. She wanted to ask if Leanne had gotten home safely. At that time, Leanne's mother, Sharon, answered the phone. She said that her daughter hadn't come home yet. This made Sarah a little uneasy. It wasn't far from where they parted, to their respective homes. If she had arrived home, Leanne should have too. Sharon also started to feel a little worried. Sarah had arrived home, but her daughter was nowhere to be seen. At that time, she reassured herself, thinking that maybe her daughter had met some friends on the way or gone some way near home and hadn't returned yet. So she decided to wait a little longer. 5:20 p.m. 30 minutes had passed since the two girls parted ways. Leanne still hadn't come home. Usually, if Leanne met some friends on her way home or decided to go somewhere unexpectedly, she would call home to let her family know, so they wouldn't worry. But today, she hadn't done that. Worried about her daughter, she immediately called Leanne's mobile phone. Strangely, the phone rang for a while and then disconnected. She called back several times after that, but the same thing happened. Why would she do that? It was very unusual. 7 p.m. Sharon waited, but her daughter didn't return. Fearing something had happened to her, she decided to report her daughter's disappearance to the local police. The police then immediately began their investigation. After the police received the report, they immediately dispatched investigators to Leanne's home. After listening to the mother's initial description, the police decided that action was necessary. So they planned a concentrated search around Leanne's house, starting from the point where the two girls parted ways. On the way home, the girl had to pass through a wooded area called Huffley Gill. It was a wild area with dense trees and undergrowth. This was probably the location where the disappearance occurred. They mobilized more than 200 police officers and volunteers that night to search the woods thoroughly, trying to find Leanne and any traces she might have left. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything during the first day of searching. On the second day, November 27th, the police tracked Leanne's mobile phone. They found that her phone had been turned on for a short period and then permanently switched off. The police also sent text messages to her mobile phone, but they received no response. Afterward, they began searching houses along the route she would have taken home.
They obtained search warrants and searched a total of about 800 houses, garages, and 150 shops within an 800-meter radius of the woods, but they found nothing suspicious. At the same time, another team was sifting through household waste near the woods. Helicopters and police dogs were also deployed to participate in the search. However, nothing was found. Not giving up, the police collected DNA samples from 140 suspicious men around the area. West Yorkshire Police, the British Waterways Authority, British Transport Police, the National Missing Persons Helpline, and other agencies were all trying their best to find Leanne. But not a single clue could be found. They thought that she might still be alive. As time passed, the chances of finding Leanne diminished. On December 3rd, it had been a week since Leanne disappeared. The people of Leeds also joined in to help. A local businessman personally donated £10,000 as a reward. They hoped someone could provide relevant clues. As more and more media outlets reported on the disappearance, the police received numerous calls reporting sightings of someone who resembled Leanne. But after investigation, none of these leads yielded positive results. Leanne's parents gave interviews to the media. They publicly thanked the public for their support and help. They said that the family had never given up hope of finding her and longed for Leanne's safe return. On December 4th, 9 days after the incident, a witness reported to the police that around 5 p.m. on November 26th, the time of Leanne's disappearance, they had seen a man walking a dog in the nearby woods. But they didn't know his identity. The man was 1.73 meters tall, slightly overweight, with a round face, a lot of redness and scars, wearing a black beanie, a jacket, and jeans. With the witness's help, the police created a composite sketch of the man's face and publicized it widely, hoping someone could identify him. The scale of the investigation was also expanded. The police searched approximately 1,750 buildings, 32 drainage wells, and 3.2 kilometers of sewers. The case became the largest search ever conducted in West Yorkshire. Household waste collection was temporarily halted so the police could search all the bins in the area for evidence. Sadly, the case stalled due to the lack of significant leads, and Leanne remained missing. On August 20, 2001, 9 months had passed since Leanne's disappearance. That day, the police received a call and the informant said, "My name is Mark Bisson. I was walking my dog near Lindley Woods when I saw something tightly wrapped that looked like a human body. I was terrified, so I called the police." Lindley Wood is an area located on the border of North Yorkshire and West Yorkshire. After receiving the call, the police quickly arrived at the area. When they opened the wrapping, they discovered a body inside, showing no signs of life. The body was wrapped in a patterned duvet. A black plastic bag covered her head, and a leather necklace was tied around her neck. The victim's body was wrapped in 9 green plastic bags with yellow cable ties around her neck and wrists. Her hands were tied behind her back. After identifying the body, the police confirmed it was Leanne, who had disappeared more than 9 months earlier. The cause of death was asphyxiation. Because the body was well preserved, experts in cryobiology also examined Leanne's heart tissue and microstructure. They then made a comprehensive judgment based on the degree of decomposition and the temperature at the time. They believed that Leanne had been kept in a refrigerator after being murdered and had only been dumped there a few weeks prior. The forensic pathologist discovered that the twine used to bind her body was a specialized material. The twine was manufactured by a Devon-based company, and only a small batch had been released to the general public. It was commonly used for making rabbit nets. Some red nylon carpet fibers were also found on Leanne's clothing. In addition, forensic analysis found a human hair on her neck. Laboratory tests determined that the hair wasn't hers but belonged to a man. It was highly likely that it was a hair left by the perpetrator. With this information, the police concluded that Leanne's disappearance had been upgraded to a murder investigation, and a code name was established for the case: Operation Conifer. Detailed information about where the body was dumped was released to the public. Anyone suspicious in the vicinity or anyone who had seen someone frequenting that area should contact the police immediately. Afterward, the police received tips from various sources.
They also collected DNA samples from about 200 people, and one of the suspects caught the attention of the police. His name was John Taylor, born on August 27, 1956, in Leeds. He had divorced his wife about 4 years earlier. He lived alone near Leanne's home, about 1.2 kilometers away. The reason the police took his DNA was that witnesses had seen him loitering around Lindley Wood. According to neighbors, Taylor kept many small animals at home. He was considered a kind and trustworthy person. Soon, the police discovered a crucial clue. The manufacturer of the leather necklace found around Leanne's neck was a Nottingham-based company. They wholesaled the leather collars to 220 dealers. Upon checking the 112th dealer, the dealer said they only sold products through orders. They had previously sold 3 orders delivered to the Leeds area, and among them was the name John Taylor, the police suspect. Not only that, but the police also discovered that the yellow cable ties on Leanne's neck and wrists were manufactured by an Italian company. The company stated that 99% of the yellow cable ties were sold to Royal Mail, a British multinational postal service and courier company. Royal Mail has a subsidiary called Parcel Force worldwide, and the suspect, Taylor, was a courier working for that subsidiary. So, was this just a coincidence? When the DNA results from the crime lab came back, the case became clearer. It turned out that Taylor's DNA matched the DNA extracted from the man's hair found on Leanne's body. The police also learned that Taylor had some particular quirks that were related to a certain extent to the evidence at the crime scene. October 16, 2001. Nearly 2 months had passed since Leanne was found. After gathering some evidence, the police arrested Taylor. They immediately sealed off Taylor's garden and the wasteland behind his house. Investigators found 3 large refrigerators at Taylor's house, some yellow cable ties, and green plastic bags similar to those used to bind Leanne's body. Finally, the police found some carpet fibers caught on a nail on the floor. After analysis, it was found that the carpet fibers matched those found on Leanne's clothing. Pollen experts collected samples from Taylor's garden and analyzed them in the lab. The results showed that they corresponded precisely to the specific pollen type found in Leanne's nose, skin, and hair. This suggested that she had been in the garden before being murdered. Faced with irrefutable evidence, Taylor confessed to his crime. He said, "On the 26th, the day Leanne disappeared, he went for a walk in the Howgley Gill wilderness. At that time, 16-year-old Leanne happened to be passing by. On impulse, he grabbed her and tied her hands behind her back with the dog leash he was holding. He then covered her head with his coat and forced her to follow him. Afterward, he took her to his nearby home. Back at his house, he forced her onto the bed. Leanne struggled desperately. During the struggle, she fell off the bed and hit her head on the floor. He said that to make Leanne compliant, he desperately wrapped a scarf around her neck. This unintentionally resulted in her death. He was so scared that he wrapped the body and dumped it in Lindley Wood. He claimed Leanne's death was an accident. When the police asked him why he kidnapped Leanne, he simply replied, "I have no comment." The police didn't believe his confession.
They believed he had intended to assault her, which is why he tied her hands behind her back. Then, the coat that supposedly covered Leanne's head fell off during the struggle, allowing her to see his face. In that instant, he decided to kill her to silence her. He then used cable ties to asphyxiate her. There was a major discrepancy in his confession. He claimed that, panicked, he immediately took the body and dumped it in Lindley Wood. But the information the police had indicated that Leanne had been kept in a freezer for a long time before being dumped in Lindley Wood. This contradicted his statement completely. On February 15, 2002, more than a year after the incident, the trial was held at Leeds Crown Court. Taylor admitted in court to kidnapping Leanne, and a hearing followed, after which Taylor was remanded in custody pending further trial. July 8, 2002, 5 months after the first hearing. In court, Taylor pleaded guilty to the murder of Leanne. The court then sentenced John Taylor to life imprisonment.
Detective Superintendent Gregg, who was in charge of the case, said, "We do not believe this is the first major crime he has committed. We feel the way the murder was carried out and the way he concealed and disposed of the body was pre-planned. We cannot rule out the possibility that he has killed before." Due to Taylor's professional approach, the police thought that this might not be his first offense. So they decided to identify and reinvestigate unsolved sexual assaults that had occurred in the vicinity of the wilderness area in the past. After tireless efforts by the police, they found the perpetrator's characteristics in 2 cases matched Taylor's. On October 18, 1988, a 32-year-old woman was on her way to pick up her children from school. While passing through Hovely Gill Woods, she was attacked by a masked man with a knife and forced into sexual intercourse. On March 1, 1989, a 21-year-old woman was at home when a strange man broke in and forced her into the bedroom. He was also masked, carrying a knife, and forced her into sexual intercourse. The evidence from the 2 cases at the time was still preserved. After DNA analysis and comparison, the police confirmed that the perpetrator of both cases was Taylor. On February 2, 2003, faced with the evidence, Taylor pleaded guilty to the 2 previous cases in court. Following this, West Yorkshire Police reinvestigated more than a dozen unsolved cold cases, including 5 murders potentially linked to Taylor. They asserted that Taylor may have been a serial sex attacker for 20 years. John Taylor received another life sentence with no possibility of parole. He would spend the rest of his criminal life in prison. On September 28, 2001, Leanne's family held her funeral. It would have been her birthday, but she would forever remain 16 years old. It's essential for women to be cautious when alone. Remember to be vigilant because dangers often appear unexpectedly. Today's video ends here. See you in the next case. Goodbye.